I just wanted to begin by thanking Reverend James for such a warm welcome. He was excited to have me from the start, so I'm very glad to be here. And also, the music really brought me to tears. It was so beautiful. And at the same time, Don's message was so touching, so sweet. And it kind of reminded me, I think it was Tyler, who asked me, what kind of music do you like? And no one ever asked me that. And I said, how about just peaceful, quiet, still music? How about that? And he listened. He listened, and the whole theme, the energy of the service is that. And, I really feel like he listened. And I really appreciate that. And that actually that really moved me. That was special, because sometimes I remember one Unity Church in Dallas, they had a whole Dixie band, and I don't know, it was so much activity. And then after the band, I said, okay, now it's time to go into the silence. What a contrast. What do you do with that? Do we go in silence and then start marching around the room, just continuing? How do you bring those together? And so what I found interesting, how do you bring them together? It's a very good question, right? So I remember going to a spiritual retreat in 2007, and there was a really deep breath session. It must have been 45 minutes of, breath like this. Like that. See, I can't even. So, and I remember maybe 35, 40 minutes into the breath session, I was kind of lying on the floor, and I opened my eyes and looked around, and I had entered into another dimension. A flame had turned on inside me, and it was pushing my being into the stillness, into the meditation, into the presence. And all the colors in the world were more vibrant, beautiful. I thought, what happened here? Something profound. I'm a different person. Same body, but something internally had shifted. And that meditative power never turned off. Just kept flowing, getting stronger and stronger, pushing my being into what you could say higher and higher dimensions, if you want to call it that, or deeper and deeper states. And I thought, I didn't know this was possible, to become a different person. Before I felt just sort of earthly. You know what I mean? Body. Eat, drink, sleep. Right? Body. Now suddenly it feels like space. So different. And so I said, it's possible to become a different person, to totally transform yourself, where you're unrecognizable. And that is the mystical path. That's it. I wasn't just interested in becoming a better version of me. Maybe I was more kind or nicer or sweeter or whatever. Yes, beautiful qualities, but I wanted to change the very core of my being. So I felt different inside, and so it happened. Then I met my spiritual teacher, whose name is Shri, 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 Swami Purna Maharaj, hails from the high Himalayas, a great yogi, great saint. He came to New York City in 2008 to do a spiritual retreat. I decided to fly from Los Angeles to New York City to be there. There were 60 people in that retreat in a little bookstore in the middle of the city. And somewhere maybe the second day of just listening to him and meditating, I went during break back to my room to visit my roommates, 3 other roommates. And as I was talking to them, suddenly I was no longer in here. I was the witnesser of the whole room, somewhere else. I'm not in here. And it's watching the whole conversation unfold. And Brian doesn't seem to be in a location. Now that's a head scratcher. What's happening? Wow, something is transforming. Swami Purna became my teacher ever since. And I visit India usually once a year to see him right on the edge of the Himalayas and just to bask in his presence. He doesn't have to say a word. He could be singing, "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream." Whatever, it wouldn't matter. All I wanted to do was just bask. Those are the mystical teachings. That this power emanated from him. I loved it so much. I wanted to be in that energy constantly. And as time went on, even in the midst of activity, whatever it was, doing stuff, singing in a marching band, I don't know. It was going on. The meditation was flowing through me. So on the outside, I seemed active. On the inside, like that. And I knew that this was possible for everyone to experience. So, in 2012, I had a darshan. You know the word darshan? Darshan means a holy meeting, a meeting with a holy being. I met Swami Purna in Miami, and for 3 minutes, we had a conversation. And he said, "Brian, now it's time for you to renounce. Leave the world." At that time, I was running a successful financial planning business, 10 years. Had put all my eggs in that basket so I could retire and be comfortable. The American dream. The retirement coming yet? When can I stop working? And he says to me, "It's time for you to just go and, release all your sort of material things and then get a vehicle and just travel about the United States and Canada and share spiritual gatherings with others." In that tradition, it's called satsang. Satsang means association with higher truth. So, I went home. At that time, it was in Austin, Texas. And I had a little garage sale in my apartment. And then I gave away most of my nice business clothes. And I sold the business, sold my car, bought a van, put a bed in the van, and then set off into the sunset. And traveled from city to city. And you know what's neat about that? Some of the first people who invited me in to do gatherings were Unity churches. So I am extremely grateful for the whole unity movement, for being so open-minded. Because sometimes I feel like the teachings that I'm sharing are rather radical. So unity opens their doors, and I remember going to one church, I think it was, North Carolina or something, in the evening. I didn't have a place to stay. At that time, I was too embarrassed to ask for help for a place to live while I was in town. But they invited me to a little meditation, to hold a 45-minute meditation in the evening at a church. So I went in. I didn't know anyone. I just contacted the secretary of the church, and she arranged it. Went in, and maybe a group like this came to the meditation, and we sat, and for 45 minutes entered into another world, another realm of quiet and stillness. It was so beautiful. At the end, I said, maybe I will ask for help. So I said, this is my first time in this town. I don't have a place to stay. So I just thought if anyone is open to housing me, that would be wonderful. And 2 couples came up to me after the meditation and said, we would love to have you. And I ended up staying there for, 10 days at that couple's home. And we had a great time. And that woman set up a series of gatherings for me, probably 4 different ones, during the course of the time that I was there. She was so excited to having a wandering monk in your house. Who does that? In this age? In India, this is a tradition. They would call me a wandering sadhu. Do you ever heard the term sadhu? Sadhu is a renunciate, a monk in India who renounces everything and just focuses their life on God, surrenders their life to God, and says, that's all I want. So then I was kind of termed the American sadhu. And in India, they're used to opening their homes. If the sadhu comes, knocks on their door, and is asking for food, they're very happy and feel honored to just let them into their home and feed them as much as they want. That's the tradition in India. For thousands of years. In the United States, though, whoa, big commotion. Big deal. What do we do with this guy? Why does he get a real job? I don't know. So, in each gathering, the purpose is to bring a vibration into the space that people can connect with and meditate upon and go deeper and deeper. And at some point, perhaps, it could stick for you and then never turn off. And you'll walk around and, the Dixie band could be playing. And it's like, you're focused on God. So if the Dixie band is going, that's God's music too. The other night, Reverend James came to my gathering, and it was ready to start. And then there was this huge group of people outside that church, and it happened to be another church that was kind of so-called competing with the gathering that I was holding at this other church. And then the Bee Gees started to play. And I said, now everyone, close your eyes and meditate upon the Bee Gees. How deep is your love? And throughout the gathering, we just went deeper and deeper into the energy. And that was the point. No matter what was going on the outside world, you can still dive into the stillness of your being. And when you're in that place, Nothing bothers you. A person could be really upset at you and yelling at you, and then you say to them, I hope you feel better. And you have no impact. You don't feel insulted, you don't feel hurt, you have no insecurities, you have no guilt. None of that. You are like pure space. Wouldn't it be nice to be in that state all the time? That is what I'm talking about. That is a victory over suffering. Our biggest issue is fear. Fear of what people might think of us. Fear of confrontation. Fear of hurting someone's feelings. Fear of getting an illness, a virus, a sickness, etc., etc., etc. So many fears. When you turn into space, and then your body gets sick, you're like, but I'm space. Who gets sick? Body gets sick, but I am. Body dies, but I am. You see, that's a victory over sickness and death. You don't identify with a human flesh suit. It does what it does, but I am. And that's exactly what Jesus was trying to teach in the temple when he was speaking to the Pharisees. And they were asking, why God, do you know our father Abraham? They were so shocked that he was implying that he might have lived during the time of Abraham. And then he simply said, before Abraham was, I am. So there's a Jesus body, but then there's the I am. Jesus' body can come and go, but I am eternal spirit. I am that I am. So the process of the mystical path is particularly purification. How do you purify yourself? Well, you have to start out with your reactions on a daily basis. That's what I've been working through for, I don't know. I really started working through it starting in 2001, looking at my psychology and saying, why am I reacting to this? Why am I lonely? Why am I sad? Why am I upset? Every day it was my opportunity to work out those issues one by one by one. So the next time a person got upset at me, I would have less of a reaction. That would be a victory. You see what I'm saying? And it's good to acknowledge, wow, I'm making progress. That's progress on the spiritual path. And then, as I said, you empty yourself of all reactions. And then you become aware of spiritual power, spiritual energy, or what you might call the Holy Spirit. It becomes real to you. And it's overwhelming. Meaning like this sort of fountain of joy is flowing upwards. And it's unstoppable. Your joy never shuts down. Even in the most difficult situations. You have to be careful though, like say if you're laughing in inappropriate times. Remember, like when I was at church some years ago, I'd have to stop myself from laughing in the middle of church. That would be rude. But you see, joy, wouldn't it be great then to be in that joyous state constantly? And it's an energetic thing, it's not just emotional. Oh, I watched this fantastic TV program on TV and it gave me such joy. Not that. Not that. That's emotional joy. There's a huge difference between emotional joy versus spiritual joy. Spiritual joy is an energy, a power, a presence that never ends, that is running through all of creation. So when you are joyous in that way, all the trees are dancing around you, the grass is doing a jig, the sky is laughing. It's laughing so hard that it starts to rain, and those are its tears of joy. Just like that. See the immensity of joy compared to normal human joy, which is an emotional thing? No comparison. That divine joy, unstoppable and infinite. And I often call it the sunlit path. You're walking through sunlight down the yellow brick road, and everything is just full of light. The sunlit path. Maybe that's why I'm so attracted to like the yellow gold color, you know? Love that symbol. Wouldn't you like to be dancing in joy your whole life? Like a madman. Someone recently said when they saw me at gatherings, they said, Brian, you've gone mad with the Holy Spirit, like a madman. And I said, no one ever said that to me. I like that. I like that. Because in Sanskrit, they actually have a word for it. Did you know that? Sanskrit, ancient Indian language, they call it unmad. Unmad. Divine madness. Where it is so overwhelming. You may appear crazy to the outside world, where you are crying because your joy is so great. And not only that, but you may even come up and touch someone, just touching them, and they fall down in a joyous sort of trance. And I mean, this happened, by the way. There was a great saint in India that I'm thinking particularly, where he did this. He would go around. In this case, anyone heard of the Hare Krishna movement? The one who originally started it was a great saint, great enlightened being. And so one day, he walks out of his cottage in India when he's like 20 years old. And he's got his drum, he's got a mridanga. I don't know if you've seen those two-sided drums. You've seen them? And he walks around this whole town called Navadvip. Hare Krishna, Hare... 4 a.m. in the morning he's doing this. And he's singing. And everyone's tired at 4 a.m. No one wants to get up. Except the animals. They start following him. So his first followers were the deer, the raccoons, the squirrels. They were all following because do you know why? They recognize the energy. Animals get it. So they're all animals are, oh yeah. And then after doing it for a week or something, suddenly the first humans are getting out of bed and what's that sound? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Even the Beatles sang that song. You know that song? Yeah. And then they, one by one, all the village started following him and singing. And so he would go around and sometimes this saint would touch someone and they would literally fall to the ground in a blissful state of consciousness and be down there for an hour or two. Tears streaming down their cheeks. That is the power of his joy. Do you see what I'm saying here? This is the culmination of human experience. And when you achieve those states of love, joy, and bliss, you don't want worldly things anymore. You won't. You don't need the typical things that normal people need. All you want to do is sing the glories of God. That's your only concern. Because it's flowing through you. People ask you, how do you let go of your desires? When you connect into spirit, you don't need those habits anymore. I don't know, pizza, beer, TV, things like that. You know what I'm saying. The typical things that people do. You just don't even think of those things because you're so self-content. Oh. This is a worthy cause.